I'm on Richard Bahr's website right now, and I love his marching orders. It says learning, serving, following, and aiming to have others join the journey. He has written a couple of books, one called Amazed, Why the Humanity of Jesus Matters. Another one is called Those People, the True Character of the Homeless. He has a tremendous heart for people who live on the fringe of society, and I'm awfully glad to have him in studio with me today. Richard, welcome back to the show.
As I told you, Bill, it's very charitable for you to continue to have me back.
Well, so you call and I say yes. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. So we just came off our Thanksgiving weekend, and I know that you have a amazing ministry feeding people, and maybe you can just give us a little recap of how Thanksgiving went.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we're involved in. So we have it in Minneapolis is where I'm based out of, and so we've got a breakfast ministry that serves every day, 365 days a year. We've got 7 teams that each work a day of the week. And so Thanksgiving is, last time I checked, is always on a Thursday.
Yeah, I checked.
And so, so Thursday morning, we did our thing like we always do, grits and oatmeal and cold cereal, but we had, of course, some pumpkin pie. And we had a few extra kind of little things for people to enjoy. So it was, it was nice. The challenging thing is talking to some of the guests, and I would ask them, so what's your plans for today? What do you got going on? And, many people in that community that we serve, our guests, are maybe estranged from the family ties are strained to the point where maybe they don't get together, don't have a place to go. And especially during COVID, there's been fewer places that have been open too. There used to be restaurants and some things like that would be open to serve a noonday meal. And there was just an awful lot less of that the last couple of years.
I know that your experiences are quite varied, and you're the kind of person, I need to remind my audience or introduce them to you in a way that is fascinating. You will meet and make friends with people holding signs on street corners, and there's a good chance within the course of that year they may be sitting at your table on Thanksgiving eating a meal with you and your family.
I had a old friend of mine join us this year again for Thanksgiving. Yeah, he didn't grow up here originally, but moved here and was homeless. And so I met him serving breakfast one day about probably 10 years ago, and we've continued to stay connected and friends. And so he just moved he's a veteran, and he just moved into some veteran housing down in kind of the south end of Minneapolis, down by the airport. Just got his new apartment like on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And he sends me texts. He's like, I got a new address. If you're going to come and get me, you got to come. I'm like, okay. So, so we hooked up for Thanksgiving and watched some football. He's a Cowboys fan, which was really too bad for him. But it was, we had a great time. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I love those stories. When we have encounters with people on the street or at corners, there's always the curiosity, how can I best help? What can I do? I think the world feels more dangerous than ever before. And you don't want to have, especially in Minneapolis, you hear about all the carjackings and, do you roll the window down? Do you make yourself vulnerable? I mean, the game has changed a little bit. I don't mean to call it a game, but I mean, the interactions are more dangerous. Yeah,
there's some continued developing and emerging challenges, I think, with that. So I would, not that I'm going to promote my last book, but in the Those People book, in the appendix there.
You can promote your last book.
I've
already brought it up.
Did I tell you I
wrote
it? You told,
Yeah, it's called Those People, the True Character of the Homeless.
Well, thank you,
Richard
Bill,
Bahr.
for bringing that up.
Yeah,
so
I'll mention it again. RichardBahr.com. There you go. That's all I'm giving you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm good with that. So there's an appendix in the back of the book where I talk about dealing with panhandlers. And you're right. Yeah, there's some new dynamics in many of the larger cities now since a lot of the unrest that we had last year. And I think the common thing I would tell people is I wouldn't urge anybody to put themselves in a place where they feel unsafe. However, I do find that everything begins with the eye contact. Mm-hmm. And I just was in a book study on Monday night. Some people had me over because they were going through the Those People book, and they're like, hey, the author lives in town. Why don't we have him over? So I got a free piece of pie and a cup of coffee. Nice. I was good with that. We talked about the book.
What kind of pie?
Pumpkin. Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Leftover pumpkin. Yeah.
But the idea of this kind of social contract that we make with people when we make eye contact, where you look at somebody and there's this expectation that there's going to be an exchange. Certainly, words, but maybe more. And
yes.
so we talked about that night. People are like, yeah, well, I'm afraid I don't want to look at the panhandler because then there's sets this expectation, And so my response to that is that if you're somebody that deals with, if you're in situations like that on some sort of regular basis, rather than being surprised about that and then not knowing what to do, and then therefore the default is, I'm not going to look, why don't you have a plan? Think ahead about, so what situations would I be comfortable in? When would it be okay for me to roll my window down? There might be certain parts of town or certain corners you might be okay with that. And then what are you okay giving? People like cash is something that people struggle with. Should I give cash? Or are they just going to do something I don't want them to do with it? Don't give cash. Give socks, give gift cards, bring fresh fruit, bottles of water. There's all sorts of things that we can do. So, but the idea is that, don't over and over and over and over deny that social contract, that look with people. Make a decision in advance. Have a plan to do something.
I had an experience, I think it was last spring, and I rolled my window down and I said, hello. And he said, thank you for looking at me. I'm a human being. People don't look at me. And I thought, wow, I was very convicted.
I hear that over and over and over. I've had people say, hey, Rich, do you know what it's like to go through a whole day without somebody looking at you? We try to avert our eyes, again, because we don't know how to engage. It's like, what do I say? Or
and if we make eye contact, then I'm obligated to do something.
Yeah, there's some sort of implicit agreement that we have. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's awkward. So again, the reason it's awkward is because you haven't thought about it ahead of time. Like if I'm in that spot, what would I do?
Yeah, have something planned, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's helpful to have a number of things in your car. I know I've gone to Costco before or the big box stores and gotten a whole bunch of socks, and you have tracts. You can have 4 spiritual laws. You can have Subway gift cards or that other sandwich shop, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Not calling out any names, as far as I know, but you know,
that sponsors your show.
If you want to sponsor it, go ahead and call me. But yeah,
one of my favorite things to do is I've got a fast food gift card, $5, and I tape it to a little message track. It says Jesus right on the front of the track, and then I hand it to him and I say, "Hey, man, here's $5 for a meal." And then there's a little message from my boss that you can read while enjoying it. And so they look at it and they laugh, and say, "Oh, I get it," But it creates a little levity, but it also sends a message too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. So, in the last couple of years with COVID, I think I've read and I've understood there's been greater food shortages, greater food insecurities. There's more people not knowing when their next meal is going to come, and I know the food shelves in the Twin Cities area are pretty much swamped all the time.
Yeah, and that's a space that the ministries that I lead aren't involved in. The food shelves specifically a lot. It's more probably the people that are probably beyond that point, probably in the homeless community.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I've heard the same thing that you have too. That there's a great deal of struggle. But then again, last year the government was sending all these food trucks to all these different churches. I know the place that we worship at had 5 food trucks or something like that. So there's been attempts to try to step in those gaps. Mm-hmm.
Richard Bahr is my guest, and we are chatting about homelessness, and his book is called Those People, The True Character of the Homeless. And Richard, the homeless that you encounter, are you finding that there has been not only greater numbers, but more challenging issues, mental health issues due to drugs that are on the street that are more dangerous?
Yeah, things have changed with COVID. Some things are, I don't want to say better, but maybe less acute in a negative way. And some things are more challenging. One of the good things, I would say, is that with some of the government money and funding that's been available, there's a number of the facilities that I know, at least in my town, have been able to tap into that, been able to make some nice improvements and things so that the situations for living are more hospitable, cleaner, better able to house people. They've reduced the densities in some of the shelters because of COVID. So rather than having 130 people jammed in a room, you got 80 people in a room. So it's more humane. The shelters in my town are open longer than they used to be because of COVID, because so many other places are closed down. So there's some good things that have happened. I think on the other hand, tensions have been extremely high. Even in the homeless community, there's people that struggle with, taking a vaccine, not taking a vaccine, and through all of society, we've been wrestling with that question about, where do you come down on that? And the vaccination rate among the homeless community is substantially less than it is in the general population. I've heard numbers like 40% or something. So, and if you're homeless, you have a greater chance of having underlying medical issues. So if the people that I know that have gotten COVID have gotten it pretty severe. I just saw a woman this morning at breakfast, just got out of the hospital. She's older, and man, she was in rough shape.
So tell me about the genesis of your feeding with 17 teams 5 days a week. How did that all get started?
How are you using the word genesis?
The beginning.
Like the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, like,
can I use that word, genesis?
In the beginning?
In the beginning.
I think so.
Yeah, it
like
applies.
As a verb?
Yes. In the beginning, how did you get started?
In the beginning,
feeding so many homeless people when you've got 17 teams of people
seven teams.
7 teams.
Yeah, there's 7 days in the week. So in Genesis, God created.
Oh, there you go. Now you're using my analogy.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle. So, all right, let's start over.
So how did that begin?
After the break, you better do your homework, and then after the break, you'll tell me
thinking about that.
How this went down. Richard Bahr is my guest. We'll take a short break and be right back. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us, and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good, and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. My guest is Richard Bahr. Can you name that psalm?
No, there's only 151 psalms or something, right?
Psalm 100.
Oh, yeah.
Psalm 100.
Okay, that's terrible because I put that on my blog.
I'm actually reading it off your website.
I had my eyes closed. I was just taking it in like, this is wonderful.
Well, that wraps up our time with Richard Bahr.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
No, let's go back to the how the whole food ministry got started, the breakfast ministry. I know you didn't start it, but you jumped on board early on, and now tell everyone what it's doing.
Yeah, a friend of mine named Dave, he was in a Bible study with me 14 years ago and had mentioned that he was going down in front of the Salvation Army serving a pot of grits and oatmeal out of the back of his van. And we said, well, how often are you doing that? And he said, every day. We're like, what? Like, you got to be kidding me. So shortly thereafter, there were several people that came around him to try to take different days, and I was one of them, but there were a number of others. And that's how it began, and it developed into really more of a partnership now after all these years with Salvation Army Harbor Light, which is in Minneapolis, where we actually cook in their cafeteria, we serve in their cafeteria. During COVID, we were the only volunteer group that was allowed to continue to operate out of there, so that was a real blessing for us and a real honor to show their trust and faith in what we do. But that's how it got started. And then by being introduced to that community and making friends, that's really when we started our nonprofit, Threshold to New Life, which helps with housing insecurity. And it's more of a restorative ministry than a relief ministry, I would say. So, and actually God gave my wife, Carla, the vision for that. I was just kind of along for the ride on that one. God pressed into my heart the opportunity to be able to write some books. I became a chaplain, so I do chaplaincy work in the evenings in the street. And I look back at all this and I think, I had like a way different plan for like the lane change in my life that I've been going through. But I like to tell people that God ruined my plans, but he improved my life.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the beginning, though. You just mentioned that you were serving inside the Harbor Lights Salvation Army, but you spent years and years and years out in the cold on the street.
Well,
or in the heat.
We were. So Salvation Army early on invited us in to stand in their lobby during the winter time because I'm in Minneapolis, and so it's a little cold in the wintertime. And so we were in their lobby, but we couldn't go into the cafeteria. It was just in the lobby. So we'd have dozens of people crammed in this lobby, all trying to hold things, while they're standing. It was really awkward. So this is like way, way better.
Yeah. So let's inspire others around the globe to find the kind of vision you found and maybe either volunteer, help, start, or try to make the kind of difference you're making.
I think it can be very defeatist when we look at the macro level issues. I know in this group that I was doing this book study with on Monday night, we veered off into this tangent about the macro level of issues and why are there homelessness and is it mental illness or why don't they get jobs? And it's like makes my head want to explode. There's just too many things going on there. But the reality is that we all can make a difference in somebody's life. And the other factor is that the great benefit from that is really that God uses that to change our hearts. I mean, I'm a radically different person than I was 15 years ago, and it's way for the better. And so God used those acts of service, sacrificial service and giving, to really cultivate my faith. I think Carla would say I'm a better husband. I think my kids would say I'm a better father, and I certainly was a better leader, when I had my company, and I'm at peace more. I give more. But it all started with really one simple thing. I didn't have a grand plan to lead all these ministries and stuff. I went to help my friend Dave serve oatmeal one morning. That's what started the whole thing. That's why I'm here talking to you today, is because of that. And so,
because of Dave's oatmeal,
everybody can do that. Everybody can go one time and go check something out. And so it's great to be on this time of the year because I know a lot of people's thoughts turn to acts of service. And
they do. They don't know what to do or how to do it, and they want to sometimes do it as a family.
Yeah, and so wherever you happen to be coming from, you'd have to be checking around to see where you can do that. I know, frankly, a lot of at least the homeless ministries get overwhelmed with people that want to do those things. So if you find you get kind of shut out during the holidays, stick with it, and go in January, go in February or something like that. Exactly.
I know in your book, Those People, the True Character of the Homeless, you've chronicled some stories of some pretty spectacular people. I'd love to hear one.
Oh, boy.
From the book.
Just had coffee with one of the guys on Monday that really struggles. He's in the love chapter. And the book is organized around character traits of people that I've met in the homeless community that are have this in spades, way more than me. And this guy has this deep love for his family, for his children, and for other people, way more than I do. and
tell us why.
He's had a lot of trauma. He came from a country in Africa. I'm not going to say what country it was. He was an immigrant, came here, educated in America. He's got a master's degree. One of the smartest guys that I know. Has experienced a lot of trauma in his life, both as a child when he was in the militia as a child, and came over here, and then he experienced some trauma in his life with the death of one of his children. And so with his remaining children, long story short, elected to live out his latter years in a homeless shelter so that he could use his Social Security to keep his kids comfortable with their kid's mom. And that's not the only love story around this guy, but it's remarkable. I don't know. I've often thought, would I do that? I've got 4 kids. Would I make that kind of a sacrifice for my kids? And not sure I like the answer.
Yeah, I have to ask a couple of questions. So he's making the sacrifice so they can be in a living situation. Why is not he in that same living situation?
As far as I can tell, I think it's because of the death of this one child, and I think how that affected him and affected the relationship with the children's mom.
Okay.
And so it's like they can't be together. I mean, he could have run off. He could have just run off and said, well, you don't want me around here. That's cool. I'm going to go do my own thing. But he elected to not do that. And she has a chronic illness that I'm aware of. She's unable to work. I mean, it's a tragic and complicated thing.
Yeah, it sounds that they're not necessarily together, but he's making a lot of sacrifices to try to keep their lifestyle comfortable.
Yeah.
As best he can.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. How about one more story from the book?
Well, the guy that came over for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, let's hear about him.
So he came from another state. He, frankly, was kind of mooching off of his family for a lot of years, never really adulted, And his mother said, it's time, it's time to move on. And so he decided to take a little bit of a geographic cure, came to Minneapolis because he thought there was going to be a lot more opportunities, and was unable to find what he was looking for something in the culinary industry, couldn't find anything, ran out of money, ended up in a homeless shelter. And the thing I love about this guy is that he's had a number of jobs, a number of living situations. He's been in and out of shelter, but he's got just so much perseverance. So much perseverance. He's in his late 50s. He's always got a good attitude. Like, he's always got a comeback plan. He's always got a comeback plan. And I just think, how many times do we have to be shut down before you just kind of throw in a towel and just give up? And this guy just doesn't quit. He just doesn't quit. I love that about him.
Yeah, that's great. So, Richard, in all the years you've been dealing with people that have struggled with homelessness, have you yourself had any exchanges which you felt like you were in danger, you yourself?
It's weird. I always feel like everybody's always great to me. I mean, wherever I'm in alleys or under bridges.
What are you doing in alleys?
Sometimes looking for somebody that I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't feel like I'm foolish.
Yeah.
But I've never, I don't know. People are always really great to me.
Okay, good.
I'd just say that I just glow. Like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I just wanted to ask because I know there's a lot of people that think I would like to get involved, but the idea of being around homeless people frightens me.
So if you haven't served in that community, it's no different than going on an international mission trip. You wouldn't buy a ticket to Haiti or something like that and just show up and say, hey, I'm here. What do you think we should do?
Right.
I mean, you would go with something that was organized. So if you wanted to begin, if you have a heart for the homeless community, get involved with some sort of organization where they can help, involve you in a way that is safe and measured, and you can get some exposure to that.
Yeah. Are many churches today, do they have ministries inside the church that are doing the kind of outreach? I know some have prison ministries and jail ministries, and
they do, yeah.
What
so
about
if
homeless
you're
ministries?
I would say most major cities, the major city that I'm closest to is Minneapolis. Minneapolis has a lot, but I think just about every major city, every market that you're in, would church would be a good place to start. There's the internet is one of those things too, where we can Google, we can find volunteer opportunities. I spend a fair amount of time in Florida in the wintertime, and so I was doing some Googling this fall, trying to find like some new things that I could get involved in down there. So, and sometimes one thing leads to another. You start somewhere and that's not your thing, but you might learn about something else.
Yeah. Any other little tidbits to have in the car, like little tiny bottles of water or anything like that? Is that a good giveaway? Bottles
of water. Fruit spoils, so you gotta move it. A lot of the homeless people I know don't necessarily have great teeth, so apples aren't always really a great thing to have, even though they last a long time. Soft, chewy granola bars, because they got a shelf life of like 10,000 years or something like that. Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
Small hygiene products, you can put them in a Ziploc bag. Those are kind of nice and handy. None of that stuff's real expensive.
Right.
Socks are great.
They're a winner.
They are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Richard, always good to see you. Thank you so much for taking time today to be on the show.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Yeah, Richard Bahr has been my guest. You can go to richardbahr.com if you want to learn more about him and his ministry and see his books. That's BAHR, richardbahr.com.